Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Hello, human beings of the world, and a special hello to anyone out there that struggles with anger management, because today, this episode is for you. Hello, and welcome to the Holy Moment Podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies with you and discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and of course, the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways, and I think this movie has a lot of those. But before we get into any of that, I have a very important question for my co-host. Jeffrey, are you coming to the party?
Ah, man, I can't make it. I've got something going on. It's a work thing.
But are you coming to the party?
I don't know, man. Like I've got this thing going on later I have to take care of.
Is it because you're gay? It's probably because you're gay.
And I've told you how I feel about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not berating Jeffrey for actually being gay, but of course, if you're familiar with the movie Punch Drunk Love, you would understand the bit we are doing. But today we are reviewing a phenomenal movie that me and my co-host just watched recently, Punch Drunk Love. It's actually for in memory, not that he's dead, but because he has gone for the podcast, in memory of our dear friend Christopher Vega. He was our original third host of the podcast, but then left due to being a really, really busy man. But every season we do Vega's pick, and he gets to pick a movie for us. And this year or season, for my category of Vegas pick, it was Punch Drunk Love. And I love seeing the duality because for Jeffrey, Vegas pick was an oversimplification over beauty, a movie that I did not like very much, but was very on par for who Vega is. And this movie, Punch Drunk Love, which I really enjoyed, was also very on par for Vega. But before we get started, I want to ask you, Jeffrey, does this feel like a Vega movie? Like, did you feel like, oh, this makes sense to what our friend Christopher Vega would like?
Oh, absolutely. Before we started recording, I actually broached the subject saying, yeah, I mean, this was a Vega pick, wasn't it? We both immediately knew exactly what that meant, and this checked all the boxes.
Through and through. Quite often at night when I'm on Letterboxd, I'll see what Vega has recently watched, and I'll go and read the synopsis, and I think it's good, I'll put it on my watch list. And this has been on my watch list for about a year and a half because of that reason. I remember I saw Vega had reviewed it, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. So I put it on my watch list, and I can say after last night, I can finally take it off the old Letterboxd watch list, which is exciting. Good feeling that is, taking an old movie off the old Letterboxd watch list.
So I watched this movie today, and about an hour prior to watching the movie, I looked it up, right? I didn't realize this was an Adam Sandler movie. And as soon as I'd learned that he was the main character, I was thinking, oh, is this just like an Adam Sandler romantic comedy, right? Like the dozen that he's been in before, right? I was like, okay, I kind of know what to expect now. I did not know what to expect. Right, I thought I knew. I was not prepared. This is a very different movie from what I had envisioned.
I was the exact same way. As the audience knows, one day when we have a fan base who will give us money for stuff, I want to have a shirt that says something about I knew nothing going in, or just a riff on I don't ever know anything about the movies I watch going into them. And this was another example. I knew it starred Adam, not Driver, Adam Sandler, and that it was either a romance comedy or maybe a romance drama. I didn't really know, but I was not prepared for the weird, absurdist, surreal humor that we got spliced with one of the most genuine human characters I've seen in a long time. Just a really, really weird tone overall that I'm really excited to dissect. But I was curious because with Vega, he likes weirder movies. He doesn't always like the most traditional. So I knew it wasn't going to be a stereotypical Adam Sandler movie. And I also know Adam Sandler does do, not super, super frequently, but he does also more really high performance drama type roles with Uncut Gems and things like that. So I assumed it wasn't going to be a Jack and Jill type movie.
Yeah, I'm also familiar with Uncut Gems. I haven't seen it myself, but I know that he gave a very dramatic performance in it. I don't know how much this movie predates Uncut Gems or if it came out afterwards. I was just assuming, okay, older Sandler.
So actually, my research to write up all my thoughts and stuff about the movie, this movie came out in 2022. I think Uncut Gems was 2021, 2022. So it predates it by a lot.
Oh,
more than almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
And with this movie, it actually sowed the seed in a lot of the movie making world that Adam Sandler could do dramas, because he was famous for all of these movies in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s of the dumb, Adam, it's like Will Ferrell and Seth Rogen, like his type of humor. Like he kind of plays the same character over and over again, and like the common day man just loves it, can't get enough of it. So this movie really put him on the map, and a lot of people, like producers and directors and writers' brains of like, well, actually, maybe he could do something more than just the slapstick dumb grunt type of dude. And it's actually an interesting story about how that came to be. Our director, Paul Thomas Anderson, he wrote this movie. So he came off of the high of I believe writing, directing Magnolia, and it did pretty well. So he's like, okay, my next movie, he really wanted it to be an hour and a half. And he was like, I am going to make this an Adam Sandler movie. Apparently, he was a big fan of Adam Sandler and really wanted to work with him. So he honestly crafted the story around what he thought Adam Sandler's best performance could be. And a lot of people, a lot of critics have pointed out that Punch Drunk Love is almost like a deconstruction of the normal comedy that we see with Adam Sandler. And also, when he was, writing it and talking to his producers were like, what do you mean Barry is going to be played by Adam Sandler? That's not even remotely who I was envisioning. So it was Paul Thomas Anderson that like saw this speck of like genuine drama filled acting compared to like Adam Sandler's normal comedy that like no one else saw. Like I don't even know if like Sandler was like trying to pursue that type of stuff, or if Paul just saw it in him that he didn't know about, which I think is just really cool that a director can see that in someone else when no one else sees that in them.
I couldn't see anyone else playing Barry Egan. Like now that I've seen the movie, I can understand the hesitation that producers might have reading the script and going, "Is Adam good for this?" But in retrospect, he was perfectly cast. Barry Egan is just a guy, sort of pathetic, sort of weird, right? Unhinged, screws are loose, but he's just a guy. Adam Sandler, I'm not going to say he's just a guy, but like he plays just a guy really well, with a few screws loose, with all the eccentricities that the role requires.
I don't know if to take it as a compliment or a diss. My sister about a year and a half ago, because first off, I work from home, so I don't need to put on nice clothes in the house daily. But like growing up, I was very against dressing up nicely. I like to wear my athletic shorts. I like to wear t-shirts. I liked being comfortable. I remember when I was younger, I was a freshman in high school. My brother was a senior. And I told him, I was like, you know what? It's time. I'm going to be in high school. I want people to take me seriously. Teach me how to dress cool. Because I guess my brother, he was in better shape and looked cool and dressed cool and yada, yada. And he was like, okay, but you got to be willing to be uncomfortable. And I was like, well, can't I like look cool and be comfortable? And he's like, no, if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, you can't look cool. Almost like a wise, ancient Asian kung fu professor master being like, you cannot have both, little one. Suffice it to say, I never looked cool. I never dressed nicely. And I still like being comfortable. The point of the story is my sister sent me a text out of the blue, completely unwarranted. Just sent me a text and was like, I get it now. I get what you're doing. You're not being lazy. You're trying to embrace your Adam Sandler Hollywood writer vibe. And she just sent a picture of like a paparazzi took of Adam Sandler on like the streets of LA, and he just looks like a homeless dude. And
I've
I
seen
was
those
like,
pictures.
thanks, sister.
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, in her defense, I'm like, yes, that is also how I dress. But I digress. But anyways, folks, if you haven't picked on it by now, you're probably dumb or a cow who somehow figured out how to put on headphones and listen to a podcast, because we're talking about Punch Drunk Love today. I already said a lot about what I want to talk about as far as like the details, but yeah, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. It came out in 2002. Some of the movies, so this is an interesting little connection. So the big movies that Paul Thomas Anderson is known for is There Will Be Blood, Licorice Pizza, and Phantom Thread. Do you want to know what two of those movies have in common? Common?
Yeah.
That's
Paul.
funny.
Okay. So, There Will Be Blood and Phantom Threads both star Daniel Day-Lewis. And
Daniel Day-Lewis, yes, sir.
I just so happened to have seen both of those movies, and I did not make that connection. I didn't know that any of these movies were directed by the same director. And so that was a really cool thing to discover right now.
Yeah. I remember when I saw it, because the funny thing is I actually knew it before we even did this episode, because when we were doing Lincoln, I was really interested in Daniel Day-Lewis acting career, so I was looking into it, and I saw There Will Be Blood, a movie I really want to watch. Phantom Thread, a movie I really want to watch. And I saw the director's name, but I didn't think much of it until I was doing research for this movie. And I was like, oh, the Hollywood world really is small. But a question for you. I wasn't going to ask it, but since you said you've seen them, this movie, super specific vibe, Also, Licorice Pizza, and then I think like Boogie Nights, something like that. Haven't seen the other two, but they seem to be a similar weird kind of tone from like what I've heard the names in the trailers. There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread seem very, very different. So my question for you is, Jeffrey, is the director, Paul Thomas Anderson, did you feel Punch Drunk Love in those other two movies or vice versa? Or were you like, oh, I thought they were different directors. They do not seem the same styles.
In retrospect, I see those connections and I see the similarities between them. I think that Phantom Threads, in particular, is kind of a weird story in the same way that this is a weird story. And so, if nothing else, like subject matter, those are some connecting threads between them. And by subject matter, I mean more like themes. And I'll wait for you to watch Phantom Threads before we get into that.
There Will Be Blood actually made it on my original list for when we were originally had the concept like 2 years ago for doing the podcast. It was one of my top contenders. So that There Will Be Blood is very much going to show up on the podcast at some point. But let's see. Speaking of that, usually we do this at the end of the episode, but I don't know how many people listen to the end of the episode. So I'm going to do it right now, really quick. We're almost at the end of the season, guys. Season 2 is almost over. We have Jeffrey's next pick and then my next pick, and that's it. So 2 more episodes. So with that, for those of you who are new here, who don't know what's going on, we do 6 categories. Each of us pick 1 movie per category. That's 12 episodes. That's 12 weeks. That is 3 months. So 3 months equal 1 season. We keep 2 of the same genres every season. Dealer's choice, which just means we get to watch whatever we want, and Vegas pick, kind of honoring the original co-host. But that means there's going to be 4 new categories. Email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what kind of category you want us to review. And category doesn't have to be genre. It doesn't have to be Western. It can be. But, we've done things like something like Third Degree, the Kevin Bacon theory where everyone's 3 like people away from knowing Kevin Bacon. And we did 3 connections away of in the movie industry who we knew what movie they worked on. So the point is the genres can be really, really, really specific and crazy, or they can be really general, like do a film noir movie. So again, email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us what either movies or categories or like a category and a movie that goes in it that you want us to review. We would love that. So let us know. You guys need to send them in soon because we're going to probably pick by next week or the week following. So yeah, let us know. Okay, that being said, this has been a great intro because we've had so much to say, but it's been like 14 minutes and I haven't even like given the synopsis or anything. So let's get going. Last few things. Budget was $25 million. It made back almost that exact same amount, $24.7 million. So while people loved it and really praised Adam Sandler's performance, it did not do well at the box office. Our cast. Adam Sandler plays our main character, Barry Egan. Emily Watson plays Lena, the love interest. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays Dean Trumbull, the pimp guy that is extorting Barry throughout the movie. Then we have Mary Lynn, who plays one of Barry's 7 sisters, but she plays the main one that shows up to his workplace and is calling him a loser and stuff. And that's pretty much all the main cast. And then last thing I wanted to mention, because I was really surprised by this. This movie was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor for a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. Did you know that?
I did not, like specifically for that category.
Yeah, I didn't know that category existed. I knew there was Best Actor, but this is Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. But yeah, he was nominated.
That feels like a weird distinction to make.
Yeah, it does. I guess because most musicals are comedies, ? I don't know. But he did not win. Unfortunately, he lost to Richard Gere in his performance in Chicago. But the director, Paul Thomas Anderson, did win Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival. So that was a pretty big deal.
Okay.
So all that to be said, just trying to lay the background of like, this is a really beloved movie, but it didn't do well at the box office, but that 100% makes sense. I think it's one of those classic scenarios where it's weird. It's not going to be, I think, everyone's cup of tea. I wouldn't say it's so indie and like a cult classic, but I do think it doesn't follow the regular filming techniques and storytelling and writing that we've come accustomed to. So I understand why it kind of bombed at the box office. Last thing, and then I'll open it up for discussion. I'm actually going to give a synopsis because this movie is so weird and I don't know how many people have watched it. I do kind of want to give us a little bit of a bearing and platform for what we're talking about. So here we go. Punch Drunk Love follows Barry Egan, a lonely, socially anxious small business owner played by Adam Sandler, who's trapped between his 7 overbearing sisters and his own bottled up rage. After a chance at love enters his life through one of his sister's coworkers, Lena, he begins to stumble towards connection and courage, all while navigating phone sex, scams, frequent panic attacks, and obsession with pudding. It's equal parts quirky, unsettling, and heartfelt, showing how messy and unpredictable love can be. So yeah, that kind of sets us up. So with all that being said, Jeffrey, almost 20 minutes into the podcast, what did you think about this movie?
It made me very uncomfortable. I don't mean that in a bad way. But this movie does a great job of putting you on edge, right? The music in particular did a great job of messing with your head, right? And making you feel antsy and like, man, I just want to be out of this situation immediately. All of the bongos and the discordant notes like boom, 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 boom.
It was a very memorable soundtrack. One of the more unique soundtracks that I've really ever heard. And I loved it. I was absolutely there for the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's a very busy score, and that perfectly complements the very busy scenes and very busy circumstances that Barry finds himself in, where he's at his warehouse and his sister's talking to him, and she's practically cornering him. He's like trying to move away from her, but she's always intercepting him. And then the boxes in the background are being dropped, and he's getting calls from the sex line trying to extort him, and you feel his anxiety because everything is happening all at once, and he does not want everything to be happening all at once. He wants nothing more than to escape.
Yeah, 100%. That scene you're talking about, I think I'm going to change my holy moment, so I'm going to say it now. That was my holy moment. I had it right. I had a few things written down. I didn't know what I was going to go with, but I think the more I wrote, the more I've kind of changed my answer. So I can talk about it here and now because I usually try and avoid talking about my holy moment to the end. But that was an awesome scene because of the music. So no, we're all aware that music can play a big role in our emotional reaction when it comes to movies. A horror movie, you have the dark strings that are kind of screeching and not in like harmony. With romance movies, you have the violin and the piano, and they sound so nice. In action, you have the horns. So, it's no surprise that music drives our emotions in movies. But what this movie did that I don't think I've ever seen another movie really do this way specifically, because there's been other movies and that we've even talked about, I think, on the podcast, where the score almost becomes a character unto itself and is thematically important to the movie. But what I love that this movie did, specifically in the scene that Jeffrey is talking about, just chaos is ensuing. It's kind of entering into the second act. We've set up that Barry is a super anxious, awkward person, doesn't know how to talk to people, probably has ADHD, might even be on the spectrum, just this weird dude. And everything is just like hitting the fan at once. He's at work, shit's going wrong with work. His sister's there yelling at him. He tried to hook up with a sex worker last night over the phone, and now she's trying to blackmail him over the phone, and just everything's going wrong. Now, normally, you would have the soundtrack building up with the chaos, which is what it does. But what it did that I've never really seen before, the soundtrack was louder than all of the other dialogue. The soundtrack took precedence over the audio or the dialogue. Usually, you have your music in the background and then you have your dialogue. But it was like the dialogue was fighting with the soundtrack and the soundtrack was pushing it down. So it was almost like we're trying to pay attention, but we couldn't. And the chaos. So it's almost like you're in Barry's mind. You're in his mind of like things are swirling around and happening so fast that you can't pay attention to anything. And I love that scene. And it was like Jeffrey said, for being at the end of the day, it's a romance comedy movie. So at the end of the day, for being a romance comedy movie, I was so stressed throughout so much of it. And a large part of it was how they handled the soundtrack. So I totally agree with you, Jeffrey.
For sure. No, and also, I mean, Barry Egan is always on the verge of breaking, right? Of snapping, right? And I was sort of waiting for that throughout the whole movie, for that moment where a line is crossed and he goes ballistic. And we kind of saw that at one point where he's
we saw it multiple times, which I love.
For sure. No, and those are always very satisfying to see, but also a bit terrifying. It's like, what are you capable of, Barry? Right? Are you, I mean, clearly you're not a healthy person to be with. How's this really going to go at the end of the day?
Yeah. Which I love that, because it could have been argued that Barry is this, you used this word earlier, an unhinged, unhealthy person. And I'm not going to say he's not to some degree, because a healthy person does not go into the restroom of a bathroom and absolutely tear the bathroom stalls off the wall as Barry did in the middle of the movie, which we'll get into. So he's not a healthy person, but I think I love that his character is this really anxious filled, kind of shame driven person who has this anger and he doesn't know what to do with it. And he's almost scared of it. But at the end of the day, all he's looking for is love. And I like that at the end of the day, when he finds that love and he's able to be honest and someone actually pours into him, because no one's pouring into him the whole, like his sisters are actively tearing him down the whole movie. So when someone finally pours into him, he's able to like be happy with himself, be content with himself for the first time in the movie. And I just feel like you could have gone a more nihilistic way. But I love that the fact is, yes, he's not the healthiest person. He does because he doesn't have an outlet and he's looking for that outlet. And he found Lena, this girl he loves. And I love at the end of the movie, it wasn't too complicated. He just needed to be honest with her. And that way he could be vulnerable and be loved. And once he had that, I'm not saying it's all cherries and roses for the rest of his life, but he definitely felt like he was in a much, much better place because he was able to find someone he was able to be vulnerable with.
And honesty is huge because he is lying to everyone in this movie, right? He is chronically lying about how much money he has, and he's lying about his reasons for not being able to attend this or that party, and he's lying about his reasons for being in Hawaii. But then the relationship truly progresses once he starts being frank with her, with Lena, right? It all begins with him saying, "I'm sorry, I actually had a freak out in the bathroom. I tore it up and we were kicked out." Which, and that's big. Like, he would never admit to something. He would never have admitted to something like that before meeting Lena, right? But here he feels comfortable doing that.
And that's why I feel like he's such a like insecure, almost shame-filled person. Or it's not like because also another like theme you get with Barry throughout the movie is he's constantly telling people, "I'm a good person. I'm a good person. Don't you dare say I'm not a good person." He wants to believe he's a good person, and more than that, he wants someone to tell him he's a good person. And so I feel like he's lying to all these people because he's ultimately lying to himself. He is just seeking for someone to tell him he is worth something. And he gets that at the end of the movie with Lena when he's able to open up to her. And so I really enjoyed him. Again, he's not a healthy person. I'm not like, yeah, like I really saw all of myself in him. I saw like aspects of myself, but I do feel like he represented a lot of us, and maybe again in a very surreal, absurdist, extreme way. But I feel like he represents so many people, people who don't have anyone to talk to. Whether that means you lash out in anger, or whether that means you retreat into yourself and you're filled with depression, or you're filled with anxiety, or you're awkward or whatnot. I've never seen, I don't think, a better portrayal of an awkward human being on on the silver screen before. Like he just was so awkward all the time. And it wasn't like, because a lot of times in movies, I feel like awkwardness is played up for laughs. Like, oh, he's so awkward. He can't go to this party. Ha ha ha. This was like the awkward that was heartbreaking and awkward and sad to watch.
A lot of these moments were very relatable. I relate to that brand of awkwardness myself, especially when he's coming into the party, right? And he's opening the door multiple times and he hears everyone chatting away, and he hears his name thrown around a few times, and he's prepping himself. He's hyping himself for this moment where, okay, I have to go in. I have to go in. I'm going to go in now. And I mean, I've done that plenty of times. And so I mean, he's definitely a character we can see ourselves in, albeit very exaggerated. And perhaps exaggerated is not the right word. Extreme, but there very well could be and are people like him out there.
I think that's one of the reasons it has such a beloved following of Adam Sandler's portrayal, because I think a lot of people relate to this extreme anxiety, this extreme stress, and this extreme loneliness that Barry had throughout the movie. But before we get more into this, something I really want to talk about this movie, because I really think it paints like it sets the structure, it sets the scene for this whole movie. Because at the end of the day, we've been talking about it. Oh yeah, it sounds like an awkward dude who meets a girl and they fall in love. Oh my goodness, like any other rom-com ever. No, this was a freaking weird movie. The tone of this movie is so bizarre. So I want to discuss a little bit about the tone, a little bit about the setups, and Jeffrey, your thoughts on it. This is the best way, and I'm really curious if you disagree with me, Jeffrey. Watching this movie, I was like, this is the weirdest combination of Scott Pilgrim versus the World and The Big Lebowski. Do you feel that?
I do. I never would have thought of that myself, but that's a good comparison to make, because with The Big Lebowski, we see this man who does not want to be involved with anything, right? Being dragged through things, beyond his volition. And so in a sense, he's not nearly as passive a protagonist as Jeffrey Lebowski.
The dude.
Yeah, the dude. But
thank God.
He's definitely being dragged around like the dude. But then with Scott Pilgrim versus the World, there's that idea of like connection and honesty. So yeah, I mean, I see
that's a good point. I didn't even think about when it came to Scott Pilgrim, like on a narrative sense of the connected, like wanting to connect someone being lonely. Because Scott Pilgrim is such this bombastic, crazy, edited, crazy visuals, hyper. I mean, it's Edgar Wright. It's hyper stylized. It's about as stylized as it comes. But when you strip it down, just about loneliness and connecting and honesty and loving oneself. But I digress. But what I got from it was like, this movie had such like a whiplash kind of effect. How like you're in one conversation and then it had a very dry sense of humor, like how Scott Pilgrim would have. You're in one conversation and then someone would just pull from out of frame, hand you a telephone and be like, hey, here's a telephone. And then you start talking and then you like just hang up. And like, so it had this dry, really weird humor to it. And then with like The Big Lebowski, kind of how you said, it had like this sense of it's just a normal movie. I'm a dude who has a normalish, not really. I'm a dude with a job, and I'm just trying to live my life. I'm not special. I'm not unique. Insert crazy, unique, inciting incident, and he goes on a wild adventure. So that's kind of the vibe how I got with those two movies. So this movie, I think Paul Thomas Anderson did a great, great, great job splicing together. I usually say walking the tightrope is kind of my metaphor of like, oh, he walked the tightrope with humor and with surrealism or absurdity, but that's not even quite correct. It's more like he spliced together these two like genres and ideas where Adam Sandler movies, right? Usually not a lot of substance, usually just over the top, crude, dumb humor. So they're fun for what they are. But this movie was able to take this absurd, crazy humor of like being blackmailed by this telephone sex operator, sending people to beat him up at his house, and they were able to infuse and they were able to infuse that with a genuine sadness of a human being that we all know, the loneliness, the denial, the anger. We've all gone through it before, but they were able to fuse that with humor, and I thought the director did a great job splicing that all together, and it made for a beautiful. I want to use the word seamless tone, but that's not right because I don't know if this movie was seamless. It fell all over the place, but in the best way. So all that to be said, that's how I want to set the stage, and like that's why it's so much of a Vega movie. If this was just like kind of a dude who struggled with like, oh, I struggle with depression, anxiety, and I met a cute girl, but I don't know how to talk to her. It was able to do that, but then use the absurd, crazy scenarios to really highlight his character of that awkwardness to the 10th degree, which made the movie so much better.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned something earlier about this movie being sort of a deconstruction of Adam Sandler movies that had come previously. And I see that. I haven't seen a ton of Adam Sandler movies, but there's Waterboy, right? Sort of a immature guy who is harnessing his anger, right, to play football well, right? And then I think we also have several other Adam Sandler movies where we have an immature character that's getting with the perfect gal, right? And perhaps there isn't much change throughout. But this is oddly enough taking a more grounded look at that character type while also putting him through very absurd situations.
Yeah, and I think it's those absurd situations, and it's like I feel like it's the opposite with The Big Lebowski. I feel like the absurd situations didn't highlight character development; they just pushed the plot forward. But because we had we had a main character that wasn't active in that movie, and that's a discussion for not a different day because we already discussed it. You should go listen to the episode we're talking about The Big Lebowski. But this movie, the crazy big weird moments with the whole blackmail subplot or maybe main plot question mark highlighted what he was going through. And I want to give an example of that because I've been talking about this idea, but let me give something specific so you kind of know what I'm talking about. They create funny scenarios, but those funny scenarios are always fueled by a genuine emotion. And then the outcome of that funny scenario is then also fueled by a genuine emotion. And it's almost like this cyclical effect. So you don't just have this dumb, absurd thing like, oh no, these drug gangsters showed up and beat the crap out of me. And that was weird. I'm going to go on with my day and we'll play it up for hucks and giggles. So an example is when he takes Lena out on their first date. They go to a fancy little restaurant and they're having a great time. They're talking, they're both awkward, but they're getting through it. They're getting through the weeds of it. And Barry, for the first time, seems happy because someone is actually listening to him. They're not tearing him down. They're listening to him and they're enjoying it. But then she makes the mistake, not on purpose. She was like, hey, and this is a reoccurring thing where basically his sisters keep belittling him, being like, when you were little, we called you gay, and then you threw a hammer through a window because you got angry or something. You're so dumb for that. And Lena doesn't know it's a sore spot. She's just like, oh, here's this funny story. Like it's a little awkward silence. I'll bring it up to continue the conversation. So she brings up this source of pain for him. So you have that genuine character moment. A guy who feels this isolation and people tearing him down at all points in his life. And now the girl he wants to like on a date is bringing it up again and he doesn't know what to do with it. So a genuine, real, well-written character with a real emotion that we can relate to pushes him forward into the absurdist moment. He's like, hey, I'm sorry, I gotta go to the bathroom. Goes in the bathroom and flips out. He tears he's tearing the bathroom stalls. He's breaking their urinals, punching mirrors. A little side note, something I love about that, because I rewatched that scene multiple times. The audio is horrible. It like is peaking. It's like, sorry for everyone at home, but it's just so loud and aggressive, but it's obviously clearly filmed that way. I think it's a technique of like bringing you into the room with Barry and his anger and his aggression, and where it's not supposed to be played softly and the levels of the audio aren't supposed to be all nice. They're over the top. But the point is, so it's a genuine emotion that gets us into this absurd, sad, but kind of funny moment, just watching this dude just tearing the shit out of this bathroom. He leaves, he sits back down. 2 seconds later, the manager says, can you come with me, sir? He goes over there and the guy's like, hey, someone just tore our bathroom up. Do you know anything about that? He's like, no, I don't. And so they go back and forth. And it's like a funny moment because Barry is just so gung-ho. It's like, in his head, he's almost believing the fact that he didn't do this. He's like lying to himself. He's like, no, I didn't do this. And the manager's like, you have blood on your hands. He's like, oh, I cut it with a steak knife. And so there's this really weird, it's funny. It's odd and it's really sad and it's uncomfortable and it's also funny. So again, it's these real emotions pushing us into these crazy over-the-top absurdist moments that push us into another real conflict with real emotions that push us into the next over-the-top absurd like scene. And I loved it. It was just a great way of doing humor, and comedy movies suck. And I thought this was a brilliant way of doing comedy.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting and cool that in that moment when she brings up the sore spot, he doesn't ever direct his anger at her, right? He acknowledges, okay, this was brought up not on purpose, right? This is simply a misunderstanding. And so he politely, very politely excuses himself. He goes to the bathroom. And that's when he wrecks shit up, right? It's so interesting. He's like, there's a time and a place for these outbursts. And the time and the place is not in front of Lena. It's not in this very public space. And we see him sort of break windows, break things in a public space at the party, but he's surrounded by family there too. So I feel like,
well, I'd like to argue on your behalf there. I feel like, because when you said that, actually I was absolutely like, oh my gosh, you're so right, Jeffrey. Again, this lonely person who doesn't know how to connect with anyone. I like Adam Sandler movies is usually very much about him bombastically being angry out towards the world. This movie, when he got angry, it was all it started internally and then he had to like show it physically, tearing up the bathroom, breaking the windows. But even at that party, he's at a birthday party with his 7 sisters and all their families, and they're making fun of him. You're gay, you're dumb, why are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. You're the worst, you're the worst, you're the worst. And then all of a sudden, it's not blowing up and yelling in their face and saying, you're the worst. Why would you do this? He just shatters these huge windows in their house in front of them. And he never directly confronts them. He never like it's very aggressive. It's very aggressive if you were like shatter someone's window in front of them. But it's not like, if you're like in an argument with like your spouse and you're like argue, and then you like throw a glass down. That feels like directed at them. But this was like he was angry and didn't know what to do with it, so he just broke the thing in front of him and they happened to be there. It didn't seem like I'm putting this aggression towards you, because he's such an awkward, lonely, I would say, so unable to connect or have any type of confrontation with a person. Never eye contact, always physical, trying to turn away from people, that he cannot even put his aggression towards them. Therefore, he has to put his aggression towards windows, towards bathroom towards walls, punching them, tearing them. And so I agree with you, Jeffrey, that I think really throughout the whole movie, until the end when he's vulnerable with Lena, he is never really aggressive towards anyone. And that's why I think he's always tearing shit up.
Yeah, in the party scene, he is not breaking those windows to intimidate, to scare the people around him. He's breaking those windows because he just has to break something. Like, there is something in him he does not know how to express, and he just has to break something. I mean, and he apologizes to his brother-in-law later, the dentist, which was a very funny scene where he's like, "You're a doctor, right?" Heartbreaking, but funny.
If there's anything you take away from this movie that I loved, it was the ability to have such a sad scene and then laugh. And it's not like, it's not dark humor where it's like, oh, I'm like, it's just so sad, but I'm laughing at this 9/11 joke. It was like, it was just well written. That's a funny thing, but this is also really sad. And yeah, I love that scene where he's opening up to the brother-in-law and he's like, sometimes I don't like myself, which is probably my favorite piece of dialogue in the entire movie. So relatable, just like him quietly sitting there in silence and then being like, yeah, sometimes I just don't like myself. And I don't know what other people want because I don't know like how to relate to them. And so it's just so great. But he's asking for help and he's like, the brother-in-law's like, I'm a dentist. I don't know how to help you. And just again, another moment where it's the only other person besides Lena that he opens up to, because he's at this party. All of his sisters are heckling him. All of them are giving him crap. The brother-in-law is the only one that's nice to him at the party. So therefore, once he freaks out, breaks the windows, the brother-in-law is the only one he can be vulnerable with. He even said, "Don't tell my sisters. I don't want them knowing. I want to see a psychologist."
There's the
or a
confidentiality.
psychiatrist. Yeah. He's really big. He doesn't want people to know he's hurting. He's lonely, but he doesn't know how to stop that. And part of it, he's putting himself in these positions, but it's because people are so abusive towards him. But again, he even opens up to his brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law is like nice and kind of cordial, but he still isn't, he doesn't, I mean, he does need professional help, don't get me wrong. But the brother-in-law also could have been someone who could have given him a listening ear, asked him, and he tried his best, but he just wasn't, it wasn't enough.
Another thing that was incredibly funny, but also incredibly sad, was when he's like, sometimes I just break out into crying and I don't understand why, right? And then he immediately puts his face in his hands. And it's funny, we laugh, but then he stays in that moment, right? And he stays in that posture, and it's uncomfortable and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, the director does a great job of making it funny and then uncomfortable, or uncomfortable and then funny. Yeah, a really good job. Well, enough about all this deep mumbo jumbo. Here's the real question. I love that Barry is like a self-proclaimed entrepreneur. Because we don't, for a little while, we're like, what does this guy do? He's kind of in this like rented out warehouse type big room. And apparently, I mean, you get the idea he has a lot of ideas and he's doing a lot of things. But I guess he sells homemade themed plungers. And I think that's hilarious.
The
And so my
Funger.
question for you, Jeffrey, is, oh yeah, the Funger,
Funger.
which is horrifying. The Funger is definitely like the worst branded dildo ever made. That's for sure.
I mean, the pole is made out of glass. Like
We fixed the problem. They don't shatter. Immediately shatters it on the table. So good.
And it's filled with
my
liquid
question is-
too. There was like a liquid in it. Like what's going on there?
Don't you want liquid in your plunger? Your glass plunger?
You're right. You're right. I hadn't
but-
considered that.
You fool. You're not the one with the business. Barry Eager is. Raking in millions. But my question for you is, if you were going to have a themed plunger, or maybe funger, if you will, what would your themed funger be?
What would my themed funger be? Man, what an excellent question.
Yeah, you weren't ready for this. Well, Jeffrey thinks, folks, you at home at the Holy Moment Podcast, let us know. You can let us know on Instagram or TikTok or I guess YouTube, maybe. I don't know. But mostly at our email. Tell us, what would your themed plunger be? What would make millions? Okay, Jeffrey.
Well, first off, I would want the Funger 2.0 that he's talking about that doesn't shatter, right? I feel like there's a way to style a plunger as like a rocket. I think that might be a fun thing to do with it.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. Yeah, a rocket. I could see it. You're shooting off.
Yeah, or maybe like it's a southern belle, right? And the plunger part is the hoop skirt.
Well, wait. Does that mean she has a super long neck? Because the hoop skirt is the plunger part, which is the very base of a plunger, and then you have like 3 feet, or I don't know. I don't know how long the average plunger is. Don't sue me, but we'll say 3 feet for example. You have 3 feet then of plunger stick, and then the tip of the plunger is where her face would be, and the wig. I assume there's a wig. So you're telling me this Southern belle has a 3 foot long neck?
Well, what I would do is I would make it more of it's not so much a pole as it is a handle, right? And so like you really stick your hand into the bowl when you're.
Oh, I was about to ask. That means you're just straining your own shit at that point.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. I see the crowd you're selling yours to, a very kinky one at that.
But what about you, Nathaniel? Surely you've thought about this since you thought of the question.
Oh yes, yes. This is, my episode to host, so I've given many thoughts to this question. I definitely didn't just come up with. I think what I would do, you're on the toilet, you're taking a poop. It's great to have a plunger, but how often do you clog your own toilet? I don't know the last time I clogged a toilet. I know there's some people at home that's like, oh man, every day. Not me, sir. The best bowel movements here. But so the point is, if you're going to sell something, you don't want to market the item of like, hey, you use this once every other month. You want to have it to have like a weekly, maybe even a daily use. So I would use it as a twofold: a plunger on one end, a back scratcher on the other. How often you're on the toilet, and you're like, I got to scratch my back. I want to do it with a thing that's covered in shit.
That right there is innovation. I think that you're onto something. Like, screw the Holy Moment podcast. This is what you should be putting your time and energy towards. Alternatively, daily use plunger. You've got one end that plunges the toilet, and then the other end clogs it.
Toothbrush. Why don't? Okay.
That way, like whenever you're in the mood to use a
toothbrush.
plunger, you just you clog the toilet and then you get to use it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this bit to go on for so long, but I raise you this: one end is a plunger, one is a clogger. You know those tubes as a kid? It's like a cylinder tube, and you flip it, and it goes, and you flip it back, and it goes. You know what I'm talking about?
I might, yeah.
It's just like a plastic cylinder tube, and there's something in it like the size of a battery, and when you flipped it one way, it would like slowly descend and make like a weird noise. We do that, so it's kid friendly as well. Now it has two uses, and it's family friendly. Something for the whole family.
That's an excellent idea. I get the sense though that parents would not appreciate us giving a kid that allows them to clog a toilet, right? Making it fun and toy-like for them.
Well, that sounds like marketing's issue, not our innovation issue. But that ends our newest segment on the Holy Moment podcast called Funger, I Barely Know Her.
It's a good name. Yeah.
That was bad. Thank you. With that being said, I usually wait to do this at the end of every episode, obviously. If you go listen to all our episodes, you'll know I do it. But I think this movie deserves to be done in the middle of the episode. And of course, I'm talking about our girl in the corner period piece. I haven't come up with a better name. Jeffrey, come up with a better name for when we talk about Feminist Corner.
All right. Let's see.
Because no one emailed us a better name when I asked them to 3 weeks ago.
Shame on you,
so
audience.
whatever bad name Jeffrey comes up with, it's your fault, audience.
Oh, we're not going to
could have been avoided.
We're not going to be stuck with it though, right? We still get to workshop it, right?
I'm stuck with it until someone emails us a better name for the segment in the movie episode where we talk about the feminist or the woman in the movie.
All right. I'm trying to work in alliteration somehow.
I know, right? I don't know why I'm so gung-ho about alliteration for this specific segment.
Feminist? Fem... I don't know. Woman time.
It's... Wow. I gave him like a minute and a half of silence to come up with woman time. It's amazing. All right, guys, welcome to the new segment, Woman Time, where Jeffrey is going to dissect the deep character of Lena. All right, Jeffrey, if you will, tell us, and thank you for being on this segment of Woman Time.
Thank you for thrusting this upon me. Yeah, but okay, Lena, as a protagonist, I would say there's really not a lot to her. I think that perhaps it's not true to say that she's the most one-dimensional character we get to know in the story, but it feels like she was serving a purpose in the plot, right? Of being this woman that comes into the life of Barry Egan and changes him. And I could see criticism being leveled at her character for that reason, that she doesn't feel as much a character in her own right. And we never really get a good sense for why she is attracted to Barry to begin with. I think she's fine. I think she's fine.
This comes in from what was the name? Talking. I don't even remember the name of the segment.
Woman time.
Woman time. There we go. Well, no, what I think of Lena, I don't disagree with you. I think she serves the point to be the love interest for Barry and is the type of person that's willing to give Barry a chance. But what I do kind of find fascinating, that I think it's more implied, and maybe it's like my own headcanon, but I think it's pretty heavily implied that she is a lonely and kind of awkward like Barry. Maybe not carrying as many demons as Barry is carrying around, but at the restaurant scene, she says, "Hey, when I came and dropped my car off, and it basically was an excuse to come meet you. Your sister showed me a picture of you because the sister is the coworker and is trying to get them set up, and she's like, I just needed to meet you because I thought you were so interesting." So you get the vibe that she's like awkward and lonely as well, and so
Yeah.
I appreciate that about her character. That she's not the hottest, she's not the most put together. I feel like she's not your stereotypical love interest in a lot of ways. I think she's also lonely and wants someone to love her and wants to be loved, and she's willing to give him a chance. And I think the more she gives him a chance, the more she sees and believes that he is a good guy, even though he has his weird moments, like freaking out in a bathroom stall and getting kicked out of a restaurant on our first date. I don't think the average person would stick around for that. So I'm not saying like she's desperate, but I think she probably sees something in him in herself. She's like, is this guy like me? Does he also struggle and is like deeply unsatisfied? Even though I don't think that's probably going through her mind, but I bet subconsciously that's why she maybe was so quick to like connect with him.
Nowhere else is this more on display than in the scene of them making out, right? And she's trying to engage in some kind of dirty talk, right? And she's like, I want to eat you.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, I want to smash your face in with a sledgehammer. He's like, I want to scoop out your eyeballs and suck on him.
I forgot about that scene. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're two peas in a pod. They're not awkward. They're into BDSM.
Yeah, they're just
What's the difference?
they're into some crazy stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. But no, yeah, I mean, I liked Lena. She was enjoyable.
Yeah. No, that scene was genuinely like unsettling for me. I was like, oh my goodness, where is this going? Right?
Oh, good. Well, I think we'd be foolish. We talked about the tone of it, but we'd be foolish not to talk about the actual plot of Barry and the sex phone worker. So I know I praised it heavily earlier, but Jeffrey, did you enjoy the absurdity that whole plot line brought about? And again, in a moment of loneliness, it was after the party where he reached out to his brother-in-law and he just felt absolutely alone. So he sees an ad for like, hey, come call us and we'll offer you phone sex. And so he calls this person and but he just wants to talk. He just wants someone to like listen to him and to just feel just desperate for some type of human connection. And so he talks with this woman. It's implied that maybe they did phone sex things. We don't really know. We don't know for sure. But the next day she calls and she's basically like, hey, will you give me some money for rent? And he's like, I don't have any money. And that snowballs into her threatening him. Hey, if you don't give me money, we're going to tell everyone about what you did and you're a pervert and you're a horrible person. Again, people taking advantage of Barry and his weakness and his sense of, I just want to connect with someone. And again, him trying to connect with someone and them throwing it in his face saying, this is your own fault. You should be alone. You don't deserve people. And so then it basically it's a scam. So this woman, because it's also advertised like it's an affair. So like, oh, call us if you want to have phone sex for an affair. So then they blackmail you. Oh, you had a husband, you had a wife, you had a significant other. And so basically this woman sets people up and then her brothers, I think presumably her brothers, go and beat the shit out of you to get money from you to give to their pimp who runs this furniture store. Okay, so that's the whole like plot B vague sideline thing that like inserts the absurd humor into the movie. What did you think of it, Jeffrey?
I thought it was great. I loved it. I think that this movie would not have been the same at all or nearly as effective without it, right? If it had just been the story of, oh, you know, guy loves girl, they're both awkward, right? We've seen that 1,000 times, but this added stakes. This added a sense of unease, right, and anxiety that underlined even those innocent and positive interactions that Barry and Lena were having together, right? Because what's going to interrupt this moment? What's happening with the sex worker line, right? And Dean, how are they going to mess this up? It's always in the background. No, I thought that was incredible.
I couldn't agree more. I thought it was absolutely needed. Again, similar, but the opposite of the Big Lebowski, where this absurdist plot line added and highlighted the human character that was Barry. I always want to keep calling him Barry Allen, but something also connected back to the earlier conversation we had about his aggression never taking it out on people. I love that when he falls in love and someone threatens the person he loves, he, for the first time in the movie, takes physical and verbal abuse on people. Basically, the brothers, like the four weird kind of incesty vibe you get from them brothers who beat the crap out of him earlier in the movie and take a bunch of money from him. And then he falls in love with Lena and he's like, I got to set this right. So he calls them back and he's like, hey, it's not okay what you did. Give me my money back or I'm going to go to the cops. And the response is send the weird incest brothers back to beat the shit out of him more. And they T-bone his car and Lena gets a pretty bad concussion from this. And he doesn't freak out. He very calmly gets out of the car and then beats the crap out of them. So he first time taking physical anger out on someone, but then later on he tracks down the pimp. He tracks down the guy in charge of the whole scam, and he just berates, screams at him, cusses him out, just absolutely goes ham on this dude verbally. So it's once he has someone who has, again, he has been vulnerable with, shown him who he is, the person that he does. Again, I don't sometimes like myself. Why should someone else like me if I don't like myself? But he opens up anyways, and they say, hey, I see you and I still like you. And after he goes through that, he's no longer willing to be ashamed, hide his anger, not be able to communicate it. He is now able to stand up and use his aggression, use his frustration, use those emotions towards the person or to defend the person he loves. And I also think that's great storytelling. And it's also really funny to watch him do these things.
And it's also interesting seeing as the movie progresses, like how much power do these people have over Barry to begin with, right? Of course, they've stolen his identity. They have his social security number, his credit card information, all of that jazz, right? But at the beginning, we're hearing them over the phone. We're not really seeing much of them proper, right? And so we don't know like what power do they have, right? What levers can they pull? How big is this operation? And so they feel all the more threatening because they're calling Barry in his home, at his place of work, and as the movie progresses, as we get to know the characters behind the scam, we come to realize, oh, they're kind of pathetic too, in their own ways. They're not all that scary. Like Barry flies to Utah and confronts Dean, and he's just a dude, and he's just as intimidated by Barry as Barry was of him.
What did you think of that final scene? Because again, it's building up. You know, like you said, they're blackmailing him. They're calling him at his house, at his work. You know, they beat him up several times throughout the movie. Were you disappointed? So when he flies to Utah, confronts the main guy, Dean, they don't get into a physical altercation. They have an awesome screaming match, and it's hilarious over the phone and then in person.
Yeah.
Barry just basically shows up, and he's like, hey, dude, I had nothing to lose before. I now have someone I love, and I will protect that. And I am strong because of it, which I will say felt a little cringy. It reminded me of the meme of I have the power of God and anime on my side, where he's like, I have this unbridled anger, and now that I have love, I'm unstoppable. But I think it worked, and I liked it, but it just was like cringy in a good way. But
Yeah.
was you disappointed it didn't end with a physical altercation? He basically just said, hey, leave me the heck alone. And Dean was like, oh, okay.
No, so I agree with you that it felt a bit cheesy to me, him saying that line, but I also think it works because I think Barry believes it. This is his first time having someone love him in this way, first time that he's loved someone this way. And so I believe that he's going to be a bit naive or overly innocent in how he perceives like the power of love, right? And I think his innocence touches on something ultimately true, right? That love, genuine love, does have power and can empower you. As for them not getting into a fight, that was an incredibly tense moment. The two of them standing face
Yeah.
to face, right? And I was just waiting for that moment to explode. And then it never did, right? They walked away. And perhaps there was a smidgen of disappointment at first. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me. These people think they have power over Barry. And Barry has thought of himself as being sort of weak and pathetic, right? But now he's not doing this thing for himself. He's doing it for the person that he loves, right? And he's willing to fly all the way to Utah. And that in and of itself is enough to intimidate Dean, right? Because like, who does that? He lives in LA. Like, if he's willing to fly to Utah, what else is he willing to do?
I felt the same way. I felt at first disappointed. Like, again, this is already absurdist humor. Let's have a big climactic, crazy finale where they fight and they get into this crazy. They use furniture because they're in a furniture store. They use lamps and chairs and all these crazy things, and it could be the climax. But it wasn't about that. This isn't an action movie. I liked that his words spoke enough, and the fact that he had confidence because someone backed him up.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think these were scammers. They hid behind the phone. I think the fact that Bear is able to track him down was definitely enough. Because right before he shows up, they have this heated conversation, and Dean is like, "Oh, you're dead. No one ever disrespects me." Like, he was talking like he was. He's going to send gunmen after him.
Yeah.
But then I think the fact that Barry tracked him down and like I think he called his bluff. He's like, "Hey, look, you can't hide anymore. You're just a big guy, or you're a little kid in a big man's chair. And the fact that you can hide anonymously because you scam people over the phone, you feel like you have all the power. Now that I showed up, you're scared, just like anyone else would be." And I like that in retrospect narratively a lot more than if they got into some big fisticuffs.
Yeah. Dean is all bluster. That's all he is. All he ever was.
Sweet. Well, that brings us into the movie. I love the final scene. So Barry gets back. He runs into the hospital, but he finds out that Lena was already discharged. So he goes to her apartment. And what I love about this is, yes, they get their happily ever after. They fall in love, they kiss it in the movie, and they end, and presumably they get married happily ever after. But she doesn't just open the door and they go into a loving embrace. She's like, "Hey, you left me at the hospital. That wasn't cool." And he doesn't know what to say other than, "I can follow you now. I took care of the problem. I can follow you for the rest of your life." And they both say it like without any type of closure. She's just like, "You left me. That's not cool." And his response was, "I can follow you." "Yeah, but you left me, but I can follow you." And I like that in the movie. There's still not tension, but they're still both human. They're still both flawed people. And I think it just shows perfectly that it wasn't this fairy tale, cute, sexy, romantic movie. It was these real people struggling through life to find someone to connect with. And even once and they connected with, there's still going to be roadblocks in their way, but they're open and honest with each other, and they're going to get through at the end of the day. And they kiss, and the movie ends, and I think it's lovely.
The movie ends with his most vulnerable confession, right? Because throughout the movie, I guess starting at the midway point after he's gotten to know Lena some, he confesses, "Yeah, I broke the bathroom at that restaurant there. I'm sorry." And then he comes back to her and says like, "Listen, I'm sorry I left you at the hospital. I was taking care of the guys that caused this. And I didn't want for that to happen again." And then later he says, "I called a sex line before I met you because I was so lonely." And that's what ended up leading to this whole affair. I got scammed. And for someone who is so averse to shame and embarrassment and ridicule, he really opened himself up there. But in opening himself up, he also let her in.
That is a great point. That I guess I didn't remember that final character detail. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, like I was saying, they might have confrontations there at the end because they're not perfect people, but it's him being his full character arc of him letting his walls fully down and being fully honest and saying, "This is who I am. If you want to reject it, so be it. But I cannot connect with a person or love a person if they do not know who I am." And he was beginning that journey, and that's beautiful.
And again, because like he's lying to everyone throughout the movie. right? Especially at first. And I don't think there's a single person that he doesn't lie to, honestly. But with her, he's finally showing his true colors, and he's not ashamed of his true colors. Or maybe he recognizes that there are areas that are in need of growth, but he is still willing to let her into his world.
Yeah, it was a great ending to like a really like a character arc. I feel like I haven't seen like a good either non-character arc or non like stereotypical boring character arc in a long time. And I really enjoyed watching Barry's character arc and the ending of it. And I thought it was great. Something that we could all take something home from. But with that being said, I'm gonna hoist something upon Jeffrey that I didn't mention at all beforehand, so we'll see if he's prepared. I'd like to vote that in future episodes, including this episode, when we do Vegas pick. So for those of you who don't know, Christopher Vega, which I guess is pretty much everyone listening, or if you go listen to the first like 6 episodes of the podcast when he was on it, his favorite like line was like, "Oh, it was very human." I just felt like you could feel their humanity. You could feel how human they were. And I'm not, and I'm a very loving way I'm saying this. And you can see it in Punch Drunk Love and an oversimplification or beauty. These are human beings. These are like real humans, and you feel their emotions and what they're going through. So I'd like to say, anytime we do a Vegas pick, instead of doing the holy moment, we should do the human moment, and we should pick our favorite moment that we think portrays humanity in the most accurate depiction. Would you be willing to do that, Jeffrey? I don't know if that messes up with your holy moment idea.
No, I mean, I'm willing to do that. I think it's a great idea.
To give Jeffrey just a moment of time to think, and because the host always lets the other person go first, I'll be selfish today. I'll say my most human moment. It has to be a moment we didn't talk about at all. So I believe it was at the end of their first date. They get kicked out of the restaurant, and then Barry brings her home, drops her off at this ugly, ugly apartment. Not her interior of her apartment, the exterior. She lived in this like gray, dark hallway. Very depressing. Not the point of the story is. He drops her off. He's like, okay, good night. There's an awkward moment. You think they're gonna kiss, they don't. He leaves. Well, he's about to walk out the front door, and the hotel front door person gets a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, are you Barry?" He's like, "Yeah, this is for you." And so Lena had called the front desk, and he's like, "Yeah," and she basically is like, I thought you're gonna, I wouldn't be opposed to a kiss." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And so we get like a minute and a half of him running the most pathetic, genuine, real run I've ever seen. Up and down the hallways, upstairs, out of stairs, through a hallway, down a hallway. Which door is he in? Where is she? Where? I don't know where she lives. Finally, he makes it. And he just awkward, takes a moment, but he knocks on the door. And she answers, and they kiss. And you think it would be this big, romantic, sensual gesture. They kiss, and then he like hugs her, and he basically breaks down. He doesn't break down crying, but it is the first moment in the whole movie that I feel like Barry feels any resemblance of a human being. Any resemblance of, because like early, like in that earlier in the movie, where he has this line of like, I want to relate to other people, but I never know what they're thinking. I'm always so alienated from everyone. So he's just this lonely person, stressed, anxiety filled, anger, and doesn't know how to communicate anything. And this is the first time he kisses, and then he hugs her, and just like this relief that he feels of like, am I connecting with someone? For the first time in many years, do I not feel alone? Are the walls finally starting to fall? Is there a chance I'm not on this island alone? And just that reprieve of the stress-induced movie we felt up until now was incredible. And I was not expecting it. And it floored me. It was a great, great scene.
Oh, for
So
sure.
that is my human moment.
No, that's a great human moment. And I think it's also the moment he's walking down the stairs before she makes the call, and the phone rings. The lady at the front desk says, "Hey, this is for you, Barry." I don't know about you, but I had the thought of, oh, were they able to find him? Right?
Yeah. Yep.
The sex line workers and Dean. And so there was a lot of tension going into that phone call. But when we hear it's Lena, first a sigh of relief, and then, oh, what's he gonna do? And then after that, we see the scene that you described so well, and it was very effective and very relatable and very human. Right? I think my human moment would be, honestly, all of the moments where he grinned and bore it, right? And those moments of hesitancy ahead of like social interaction, like him opening the door to the party and fainting, going in those 3 times before making that move. And then you all have all of his sisters that are bugging him about this thing and antagonizing him. And he's just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's cool, right? I'd felt that anxiety, and it's an anxiety that I have experienced, right? And so for me, those were the moments that were the most human, where when he was going through the throes of that anxiety.
Adam Sandler's performance, I don't know, like 65. Well, a reason it was so great was his physicality, his reactions to things, and the anxiety and the self-deprecation you could feel on his face, and the desperation of like, these people are mocking me and I want to say something, but I can't. I don't know how to. And just how he expressed it with his physical body was 10 out of 10.
And there was something cathartic about that moment in the party, right? It cathartic for a moment, at least for me, right? It was shocking, um, and he shouldn't have done it, right? No one's making excuses for that action, but I've been in situations where I've not known how to respond, right? And I feel antagonized, and I just wish I could just do something, right? Have some outburst, have some outpouring of emotion that expresses the turmoil inside. And so, yeah, I mean, that speaks to something true, a true instinct that we have.
A great human moment. That's great. Oh, wow. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. A really great movie that at the beginning I had no idea what I was watching. I did not know if I was going to like it, but they really pulled through with uh, the story. Those are some of my favorite movies where you have like a core, like I talked about this the other day, like a core story to the human condition and experience: loneliness, guilt, not knowing how to connect with someone else. And then you wrap it up in this unique bow that only cinema could present, with the music, with the visuals, with all of it coming together. And I so really, really enjoyed myself. That being said, real quick, what would you give it? 1 through 5.
I would give it I'd say like a 3.4, maybe a 3.5.
I was thinking 3.8, but I think I'm just gonna go 4. I think I'm just gonna go because not only did I enjoy it, not only did I enjoy it more while thinking about it, I would rewatch this movie. And I don't like rewatching movies, but I would be like, I'd rewatch this movie. So I think I definitely deserves a 4.
Yeah, I mean,
Really,
I
really solid.
I would rewatch this movie, but I love rewatching movies, and so that's not as
Yeah, we're
unusual
very
for
different.
me. Yeah. So 3.5 for me. I did enjoy this movie though. I think it was very well done, and I think finding out that this director also directed There Will Be Blood and Phantom Threads is going to make me view all those movies in a different light, and I'm actually interested to rewatch those movies.
We got a whole podcast that we're going to be here for many, many years, ladies and gentlemen. So get used to it. Well, at this time of the night, we would normally spin our wheel, but guess what? We only have one movie left for Jeffrey. And what is that movie?
That movie is, drum roll, Total Recall,
Total Recall.
the one with Arnold
Movie I've been waiting
Schwarzenegger.
for a while.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for your category. We do a bad job of saying the categories. I will say both of us. For the category Schwarzenegger, which is any movie that has Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's kind of nice that movie's last for you, Jeffrey, because you rewatched it like in November, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice that it could be arguably the longest you could have waited. Well, good. Well, yeah, guys. Well, hey, tune in next week. We'll talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger's performance in Total Recall. I hear there's 3 boobs in it. How exciting. But yeah, guys, this was a lovely time. You have a lot of homework. Email us about what genres and movies you want us to review next season. Email us about what theme you would put on your plunger if you're an entrepreneur. And email us what we should title the segment where we talk about the females in the movies and anything else you want. But until next time, guys, you can find us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the podcast platforms. And remember, don't be an island. And if you're going to be an island, at least be an island where other people wrecked on the island with you so you don't starve and get weird and have sex with a volleyball like Tom Hanks did. Have sex with a real person on the island. All I'm trying to say is don't be alone. Until next time, bye-bye.